Warning: the following video contains explicit language which may be offensive to some viewers or inappropriate for children. The content within this video is intended for mature audiences only.
Are you ready? Hey everybody, it's Jeff. Been a nice day in Maine today. I mean, it was a little cloudy, okay, and off in the distance it looked like there were storm clouds, but the sun was still poking out. And now, right about now, it's starting to cloud in a little bit more here. It's about almost 7 o'clock here, so it's clouding in some. But it's not as hot as it was yesterday. It's like in the mid 70s today, where it was in the mid 80s yesterday. But yeah, it's nice, and you know, everybody's out enjoying walking around and walking their dogs and blowing firecrackers across the road. There's just fucking kids, you know, because, you know, in this state, you know, we're allowed to have firecrackers, okay? I don't know how the rest of your states are. I mean, for a while Maine didn't allow it, but now we do, so. Anyway, I wanted to read, you know, some news items here today, and this first one is from CNN, and it's written by John Fritz, titled, "Trump Tariffs Decision Rests on Arguments Conservatives Repeatedly Used Against Biden." Interesting. The blockbuster federal court ruling that halts President Trump from imposing some of his most sweeping tariffs rests in part on a legal theory that conservatives groups repeatedly used at the Supreme Court to block former President Joe Biden's agenda. A push by the majority conservative Supreme Court to use what's known as the, quote, major questions doctrine, unquote, to trim the power of the White House and federal agencies to act without congressional approval may play a role when the case inevitably works its way up to the High Court. Trump initially pledged to bring an emergency appeal to the Supreme Court within days, but a federal appeals court on Thursday afternoon blocked the lower court's order pending further legal action, meaning Trump's tariffs will remain in place for now while the litigation continues. The U.S. Court of International Trade on Wednesday blocked Trump from relying on a 1977 law dealing with economic emergencies to impose sweeping duties on much of the world. It did so in part by noting separation of powers theory in the Supreme Court has used to shut down some of Biden's policies, such as his effort to forgive student loans, curb power plant emissions, and extend a moratorium on evictions at the tail end of the pandemic. Quote, "There's a broader movement in this direction," unquote, said Andrew Morris, senior litigation counsel at the New Civil Liberties Alliance, a libertarian-leaning law group that is active at the Supreme Court and that sued Trump over the tariffs in a separate case. Quote, "The general trend is that the court is looking closely at whether Congress has delegated certain power to the executive branch, agencies, and presidents," unquote, Morris said. Quote, "That trend weighs against the president in this case," unquote. In 2023, the Supreme Court relied on what's known as the major questions doctrine to block Biden's student loan forgiveness plan. That doctrine required Congress to, quote, "speak clearly," unquote, when it intends to authorize a president to take actions of, quote, "economic or political significance," unquote. In other words, if Congress doesn't explicitly include language in a law, giving the president power to act in some way, that action may be legally suspect. The Supreme Court in 2022 curbed the Environmental Protection Agency's ability to regulate carbon emissions from power plants, a major defeat for Biden that also relied heavily on the major questions doctrine. In both cases, policies were challenged by Republican attorneys general in conservative states. The trade court's opinion also flicked at what's known as the, quote, non-delegation doctrine, unquote, or the idea that Congress can't delegate its power to federal agencies. The Supreme Court is currently considering a case it will likely decide in June that touches on that same doctrine. That appeal involves the multi-billion-dollar Universal Service Fund, which Congress created in 1996 to offset the cost of phone and internet service for low-income Americans. A conservative, quote, consumer awareness group, unquote, is challenging that fund, arguing it amounts to a tax levied by the Federal Communications Commission. It is Congress that holds the power to tax, not the executive branch. The Federal Trade Court nodded to both theories in its opinion Wednesday as, quote, unquote, tools that could be used to resolve the case. Quote, these tools indicate that an unlimited delegation of tariff authority would constitute an improper abdication of the legislative power to another branch of government, unquote, the court wrote. Quote, regardless of whether the court views the president's actions through the non-delegation doctrine, through the major questions doctrine, or simply with separation of powers in mind, any interpretation, unquote, of the law, quote, that delegates unlimited tariff authority is unconstitutional, unquote. The administration said the ruling, quote, threatens to unwind months of foreign policy decision-making and sensitive diplomatic negotiations at the expense of the nation's economic well-being and national security, unquote. During Trump's first administration, the Supreme Court declined to hear appeals over Trump's 25% tariff on foreign steel. Those tariffs were levied under a different legal authority. All right. So, if he makes it to the Supreme Court with this, it will be an interesting ruling because they've been ruling for the Constitution stated separation of powers, separate but equal. So it would be kind of ridiculous for the Supreme Court to go back on their ruling that they under Biden on those things that I listed there, and just okay it for Trump. It'd make him really look so fucking partisan. Okay, and that's something that everybody in this country is having a hard time with, is seeing that our Supreme Court is really, leaning to the right or leaning to the left. We don't want them leaning anyway. We want them to stay on the straight and narrow. They're supposed to represent the Constitution. They're supposed to tell us what that thing means, okay, about this issue, about that issue, about this, where we stand as a country in relation to all these things. That's what they're supposed to do. They can't take a side or the other in that, because that would mean, justice isn't blind, right? So they got to be middle of the road. And too often, okay, especially with the abortion issue, they have been on the right side of things. Okay, and I ain't meaning the correct side, but I mean the right-wing side of things. Okay, and not in a good way. And America's really getting sick and tired of that. Maybe a little bit of that is what's playing on here, is that the Supreme Court is starting to feel the wrath here of a lot of Americans. They're hated. Okay, I would dare say their approval in this country, the approval numbers for the Supreme Court are lower than Trump's. Okay, I believe it is. I don't know. I haven't seen the numbers recently, but they were low the last time I looked. Okay, but I dare say their approval is lower than Trump's. So they got to do something about that. And if they keep doing what they're doing by kissing Trump's ass all the fucking time, hey, things could happen if we get a Democrat president that could bring an end to the Supreme Court if they keep going down this path. And I don't think any of those justices want to see that happen. Okay, so at some point they're going to have to buck the guy that appointed him. Okay, like I said, it just feels like these people will only go so far before they have to consider, you know, where they're going to be, years from now. And so we have to be, they have to be careful about, always doing what Trump wants, because the rest of the country doesn't like Trump for one thing, and they like the courts even less. That's not very conducive for a healthy government, to see that happen. So anyway, that's that article. Okay, and then this article comes out today, the same, about an hour or so after it was done. This is from The Hill, entitled "Appeals Court Lifts First Block on Trump's Tariffs." A federal appeals court lifted the first of two rulings blocking President Trump's tariffs on Thursday, handing him a temporary win after a lower court rejected the administration's legal defense hours earlier. Many of Trump's tariffs remain blocked under a separate ruling issued by a federal judge in Washington, D.C., though that judge gave the administration 2 weeks to appeal before it goes into effect. But the new ruling by the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Federal Circuit lifts the initial block imposed Wednesday evening by a New York-based court that handles trade cases. Quote, "The judgments and the permanent injunctions entered by the Court of International Trade in these cases are temporarily stayed until further notice while the court considers the motion's papers," unquote, the new order reads. The appeals bench also set a briefing scheduled through June 9th for the parties to lay out their arguments. The court will then rule whether to grant a longer pause. Trump has sought to impose tariffs on almost all U.S. trading partners since taking office, creating whiplash in financial markets as he repeatedly delayed or adjusted the announcements. Stocks opened higher Thursday in the wake of the tariffs being blocked, and NVIDIA reporting better than expected revenue. The lawsuits concern Trump's attempt to impose many of the tariffs by invoking the International Emergency Economic Powers Act of 1977, which authorizes the president to impose necessary economic sanctions during an emergency to combat an quote, unusual and extraordinary threat, unquote. Trump has attempted to leverage the law by pointing to trade deficits with other countries and an influx of fentanyl coming across the border. Democratic-led states and small businesses have filed a series of legal challenges contending the statute provides Trump no unilateral authority to impose tariffs, even if those are valid emergencies. Jeffrey Schwab, senior counsel at Liberty Justice Center, which represents one group of plaintiffs, called the appeals court ruling a procedural step. Quote, "We are confident the Federal Circuit will ultimately deny the government's motion shortly thereafter, recognizing the irreparable harm these tariffs inflict on our clients. This harm includes the loss of critical suppliers and customers, forced and costly changes to established supply chains, and most seriously, a direct threat to the very survival of these businesses," unquote, Schwab said in a statement. On Wednesday night, in the group's case, the U.S. Court of International Trade rejected Trump's efforts for the first time, permanently blocking his quote-unquote Liberation Day tariffs and some imposed against China, Mexico, and Canada. And on Thursday, a federal judge based in Washington, D.C. issued a similar ruling that remains intact. The administration has appealed that decision too, but it heads to a separate court that has yet to rule. Neither case impacts some of Trump's other tariffs imposed under separate legal authorities, including those that target specific products such as steel, aluminum, and cars. Administration officials have blasted the judges who blocked Trump's tariffs, accusing them of intruding on presidential authority. Quote, "The three judges of the U.S. Court of International Trade disagreed and brazenly abused their judicial power to usurp the authority of President Trump to stop him from carrying out the mandate that the American people gave him," unquote, said White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt at a press briefing Thursday. So, temporary is the key word here, temporary. The constitutional precedents and formidable volume and unity among lower court decisions cannot go unnoticed by the Supreme Court. That includes Alito and Thomas. But, you know, again, Trump doesn't really have to care about the courts. He hasn't up to this point. You know, he enacts stuff with executive orders and everybody complies. And that's, like I said, that's where the Achilles heel to his plans is the people complying. They don't have to. If they know it's a bomb, don't fucking fuck with it. Okay? You know what I'm saying? You don't, if you know there's a trap, you don't go deliberately walk into it. Trump has got all these fucking landmines all over the place to wreck the whole system. And he tells them, walk into the minefield. Fuck you. You know? You walk in the fucking minefield. We're not walking through that. You know, the businesses in this country have a right to save their own necks. Okay? If they want to leave the country as a alternative, they'll do so. Some already have. You know, to avoid the tariffs. And I'm saying, well, if you don't want to leave the country, okay, then you don't have to ask your suppliers or whoever, you know, that we're going to put a tariff. You're not paying no fucking tariff. And the customers are not going to pay no fucking tariff. Nobody's going to pay a tariff. Period. Okay? Nothing that man in the White House is signing into law is actually constitutional. Nothing. He can't govern through executive orders. It's not legal. It's not legal. You've got to have a certain situation going on in this country, which we are not experiencing right now, to justify that. Even in a time of war, a president will not enact that many fucking executive orders, for Christ's sake. Trump is the only president who has done this. Okay? So think about all the situations that this nation has faced in the past. All the good times, all the bad times. How many executive orders do you think these people put into place during either of those times? Certainly not nearly as many as Trump. But he comes into this office when the country was doing good. It was recovering. And the minute he got in there, right off, executive order, executive fucking orders. And what's the reason? Oh, we're at war with the illegal. You know, what? You can't even come up with a good answer for that, Trump. You're trying to throw fucking urine on our heads and tell us it's raining. Okay, fuck you. We don't have to listen. We don't have to believe you, for one thing. We certainly have very good grounds not to believe a thing you say. So why the fuck should we believe that we need to put tariffs? I think any business in this country that's worth its salt and cares at all about its stockholders and all that would just tell Trump to go fuck himself. Okay? Do what you want, Trump. We're not going to put tariffs on our customers. We're not going to do this. All right? Amazon, you didn't have to do you didn't have to go and comply. Yeah, you did the right thing to show us what we would pay with the tariffs. Okay? But then you could have put underneath the total, but you won't have to pay the tariffs because we're not going to ask anyone else to pay them. You know? What's Trump going to do then? Bawl, cry, throw a hissy fit, you know, do what he wants. But you're going after a monster company. They got lawyers up the ass. They will fight you till the day you die, which won't be too long from now, I imagine. But they can stonewall you and fight you tooth and nail, and you wouldn't see a fucking dime of those tariffs. You know, seriously. You know, I feel like, you know, the businesses have the cards, like using Trump's saying, the business world in America has the cards, and they always have. That's why our government is so corrupted, is because they are controlling the government with money, donations. If they can do the reverse to get what they want. If they don't like Trump and they don't like what he's doing, no more donations. That would dry up the Republican Party like you wouldn't believe. They can control this whole thing without sending anybody to court. All they'd have to do is cut off the tap. These Republicans would be screaming for Trump's head. No more briefcases of money going into Washington, D.C. because the business community doesn't like what Trump's doing with the tariffs. Think about that. Who runs what in this country? These days, it's not so much the government anymore. So Trump, he's ruling from the wrong podium. If he wanted to control the government, he'd be on the other side of the fucking aisle, in the business world. But he ain't a very good businessman, so maybe that's the reason why he decided to go the government way. But in the government way, it relies on everybody agreeing with what the president's doing in order for anything to happen. And since there's so many, and it's growing in number, so many people not agreeing, that means his power is not as great as he wants people to believe. Okay? It ain't. So I feel like, there's an opportunity here for the business world to speak up loud and clear. They will be heard over any of us if they feel their businesses are in jeopardy, and many of them are, like the trucking industry and all that. Okay, a lot of companies right now are facing some bad fucking times right now. It's time for them to unify against him, along with the rest of us. Let's go to a commercial break.
I'm Alex Curtis. I'm a lobsterman in Maine, and this is me.
I'm Roxy Sugar, and this is me.
I'm Eric Hopkins. I'm an artist, and this is me.
This is me.
Me.
This is me.
This is me.
At the end of the journey, the main thing is you, original.
Stephen Miller designed it. Donald Trump demanded it. Kristi Noem and Holman ordered you to do it. Illegal deportations, mass raids, rounding up people who are here legally, arresting citizens, family separations, snatching students off the street for tweeting, detention without hearings, shipping them to foreign prisons, deportations defying court orders. When government agents like you abuse your power, when you trample civil and constitutional rights, you can be held personally liable in civil court. You can lose everything, and Trump can't pardon you. That includes ICE, that includes CBP, contractors, DOJ, even the White House. Yep, every last Trump official pulling the strings. Even, well, especially the lawyers. If you think you're safe behind badges and titles, you're wrong. You do a hard, dangerous job. You're vital to our security. But what they have you doing now isn't law enforcement. It's just lawless, and you'll pay the price for following illegal orders.
I thought I'd just get head spins, not nicotine poisoning.
Oh my god. His vape taped. I wanted to be social. I didn't want the addiction that took over.
I thought it was just a bit of fun, but not being able to breathe because of lung damage is definitely not fun.
It's proven that vapes cause real harm. Every vape is a hit to your health. For more proof, search vaping harms.
How to use a pump to get bigger. Hi, I'm Clarissa from Our Doctor, and we're talking about pumps and the benefits of using male enlargement and enhancement vacuum pumps. The male enhancement pump is a very easy to use and effective medical grade device to help men achieve a fuller erection and reduce premature ejaculation. This digital and waterproof device can be issued without a doctor's prescription. How do you use one? It's quite easy. Simply insert your penis shaft into the pump tube, power it up, then choose your desired setting. You may feel a suction, which is a good thing. This is drawing blood into the penis vessels. This causes a swelling effect to give you temporary, more significant, and more complex erection results for up to 24 hours. Permanent results can be achieved with regular daily sessions just by using this pump. If you suffer from erectile dysfunction or are looking to increase your size, this pump is proven to work. Due to genetic or hormonal factors, men born with micropenis or a tiny penis should also consider this product. The reason why is because you have additional skin growth around your penis and it's buried. This condition is not uncommon. However, using a pump like this one or having an outpatient procedure done can resolve this issue. From the men who have used the pump, they'll say it's given them a quarter to a full inch in length after using it for about 5 to 10 minutes before their sexual encounter. Some men like to take either sildenafil or tadalafil in conjunction with this pump, so they can achieve even longer lasting results. If you have any questions about our products or services, you can check us out on our website or call us, and we have doctors and specialists that can answer any of your questions. Thanks for watching. Please like, follow, and subscribe, and post any questions you may have in the comments below. See you next time.
Holy fuck.
Were you just checking out her ass?
No, I wasn't.
You know what? Fuck this.
Wait, babe, calm down. Oh my god. Mary! I am sorry!
Some people have a deep, abiding respect for the natural beauty that was once this country. And some people don't. People start pollution. People can stop it. Write for Pollution Booklet, Box 1771, Radio City Station, New York.
Be a part of the entertainment value of a lifetime.
I loved it. It was the best performance I've seen in a lifetime.
I loved the show. I liked it very much. He's a very entertaining man. It's well worth the money.
Now appearing in Charlottetown, coming to Halifax November 6th to the 18th, and St. John November 20th through the 26th.
To you. This is from Fox News here on the internet here. Entitled, Justice Department tells American Bar Association it will no longer comply with ratings for judicial nominees. Justice Department on Thursday formally notified the American Bar Association that it will no longer comply with its ratings process for judicial nominees. The result of what it argues is a biased system, and one that, quote, invariably and demonstrably, unquote, favors nominees put forth by Democratic administrations. The letter sent by U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi to ABA President William R. Bay was previewed exclusively to Fox News. It marks, of course, it was exclusive to them. That's their their safety net. It marks the latest escalation in a protracted legal fight that Republicans have waged against the nation's largest association of legal workers. For several decades, quote, the American Bar Association has received special treatment and enjoyed special access to judicial nominees, unquote, Bondi said in the letter. Quote, in some administrations, the ABA received notice of nominees before a nomination was announced to the public. Some administrations would even decide whether to nominate an individual based on a rating assigned by the ABA, unquote. The Department of Justice said in the letter that it will no longer grant the ABA the special treatment and first access it has received, revoking decades of precedent where the ABA interviewed and vetted potential members of the incoming DOJ team. Quote, accordingly, while the ABA is free to comment on judicial nominations along with other activist organizations, there is no justification for treating the ABA differently from such other activist organizations, and the Department of Justice will not do so, unquote. It also ended an official Office of Legal Policy that directed judicial nominees to provide waivers, allowing the ABA access to non-public information for nominees, including bar records. Nominees will also not respond to questionnaires prepared by the ABA and will not sit for interviews with the ABA, Bondi added. The Trump administration's decision to excise the ABA from the judicial nomination process comes after several Republican senators on the Senate committee tasked with vetting judicial nominees told the ABA in a letter earlier this year that they plan to ignore its rating system. The ABA, established in the late 1800s, has grown into a sprawling organization that touts a membership of over 400,000 legal workers. But it has sparked criticism from Republicans, including members of the Senate Judiciary Committee. Senator Mike Lee, Republican from Utah, previously blasted the ABA as a, quote, radical left-wing advocacy group, unquote. He and others on the panel previously took aim at the group for embracing so-called, quote, woke initiatives, unquote, including its heavy use of diversity, equity, and inclusion, or DEI efforts in many facets of its work. This is not the first time Republican administrations have broken with the ABA. The George W. Bush administration ended their practice of giving the ABA a first look at nominees, and Trump also did so in his first presidential term. Ridiculous? Yeah. They're just pissed. I mean, look, this administration doesn't like anyone criticizing their decisions, their policies, or the nominees that they choose. The ABA gave ratings based on hundreds of years of, legal foundations. Many of Trump's nominees in his first term were deemed unqualified, but they were confirmed anyway. Okay, and one of those people was Aileen Cannon, and the ABA was completely right about her. Okay, she didn't have any ethics. No, I mean, she came with a price tag, and as long as you paid that price, she would do what you wanted. Okay. And with this article here, I guess you could translate, in simpler terms. We're not going to pretend that the nominees are professionally qualified to be federal judges. We're just appointing MAGA loyalists. That's what they're doing. Okay, when you hear the article and they say that they're pissed off that the Democrats are only the Democrats aren't having any problem with the ABA, but the Republicans are, because Republicans are always bitching about never getting their way. Because the things that they want to do, which Trump has been doing, by the way, by thumbing his nose up at the law, that's what they want. That's what they're doing. ABA and organizations like it are there to protect the integrity of the judicial system. But these fucking Republicans, they want to go in there. They want to seat their own goddamn members. Okay? They don't want anybody looking at them because they wouldn't pass scrutiny. They wouldn't pass the vetting process. They only want those people in there so that way they know that these people are loyal to the president. And if what the president wants, they will deliver. Okay? They're not gonna have any problems with ethics or morality because they don't have any. Okay? That's what this ABA is there for. They're there to tell people who you can trust to do the job. Who you can trust. But no, you see, the Republicans don't want to play that game. They don't want to be honest. They don't want to be trustworthy. They want to be crooked. And to be crooked, you have to have crooked players. And in order for them to get that, they have to remove the standard and the vetting process that brings in the honest people. They got to get rid of that. You know, there's no way around it. And like it said in the article, okay, this is from Fox News goddamn site, okay. The George W. Bush administration didn't look at it, you know, the ABA, and Trump didn't in his first term, okay. So we know how Republicans think. They're sick and tired of having to play the game, to be honest, to follow the rules, to follow the law. They don't want any of that stuff because they think that all those things are just roadblocks to get what they want. And what is it that they want? Well, that's an easy question to answer. All you got to do is look what's going on around you. Deportations. Okay? Whether you're a citizen or not, whether you're a criminal or not. Okay? In fact, Trump doesn't even want to bother with the judicial system, the due process that we have in our country. You know? So, in other words, why would he care about who gets appointed to what position? Why? If he's not going to use it anyway, if he's going to just ignore it anyway, why would he care? You know? It's just, this is the way they want to run the country. They don't want laws impeding what the president wants. Now, if the president was Democrat, you goddamn right know that they would want those laws in place. They would want the vetting of all things that the Democrats want. Okay? Rules for thee, but not for me. This is what they are. They're hypocrites. And when you start down that fucking road, as they are, okay, what makes you think the Democrats won't try the same shit when they get in there? You realize how bad it could be for the Republicans if we get a Democrat president in there who says the same thing Trump does? Let's round up all the Republicans and deport them. You know? And forget what the hell the courts say. I mean, think about that for a minute. You know, Republicans, you think that just because you get your way once doesn't mean it's going to last forever. You know, in this country, presidents come and go. You know? And if you okay it for one, you're going to have to okay it for another. That's why, you know, we try so hard, the rest of us, to keep the bar, as it were. And I'm not just talking about the bar association. I'm talking about the bar of fucking ethics in this country at a level where people don't try to jump over that bar. Okay? Where we all pass it because of our character, because of what we believe, what we stand for, our integrity. It matters. It should matter. Because we have ignored it for so long, we have found ourselves in this situation where we have a lot of unethical people running the country. MAGA. Okay? We have a lot of unethical people out there right now in our government who are systematically tearing down the walls, the bars, all these fucking things, tearing it all down. And while we sit here and watch this go on, we wonder why things just continually get worse as time goes on. Well, people, when you stop fucking falling for the bullshit stories, okay, and I'm talking about Trump stories, okay, when you stop listening to that fucking guy and just put it in your head that everything he says comes with a price. Usually it's going to be the one, you're going to be the one that's going to pay that price, okay? But if you get it into your head that what he wants is only going to benefit him, not you, okay, you'd be halfway there. You'd be halfway there to realize what's really going on here. Democrats aren't fucking you over. Okay, they are not fucking you over. What's fucking you over is the other side. Okay, they are there to pretend to be on your side only because to get your vote helps them to help their wealthy, to keep them in power. Their money, your vote, keeps them in their position. At the end of the day, the money matters more than the vote because, hey, it fills their coffers whenever they have to run for elections. Okay, that's what goes on. But you have to understand, this is not a new game. This has been something that's been going on here for a long time. But it's gotten to the point now where we have made that part of life in Washington, D.C., and now it's become common knowledge. Everybody knows about it, but nobody does anything about it. And nobody wants to do anything about it. Okay? It's made a lot of politicians fat cats. When they get done with their jobs in D.C., if they're voted out, they become lobbyists and they make twice the money. Okay? So you see, at the end of the day, the money is what dominates the thinking in Washington, D.C., which is also what dominates what I just read to you in this article here. Okay? They got to have those crooked lawyers and those crooked judges in their pockets. They got to have them there. Because that way they can do all kinds of scams and no one will ever know about it. No one will ever get punished for it. Okay, when the ABA would say this person you don't want because he's untrustworthy, that person you don't want because he's got a history of, okay, these people were there to direct you on who you can trust to be sitting at the bench or to be a lawyer. Okay, without them, okay. So it's not a very good thing that this is what Pam Bondi's doing, but I would suspect that the next administration come in, if it's Democrat, will just simply go back to relying on the ABA, regardless of what Pam Bondi says or what Trump wants to do here on that. All right, here's another story here. A telling judicial rebuke of Trump's tariffs from another Trump appointee from CNN. The biggest story of President Trump's second term so far is he's going to great lengths to expand his own power and daring Congress, the courts, and anyone else to stand in his way. Those who do so are labeled usurpers. But the sheer brazenness of Trump's power grabs has steadily come into focus via a stream of major judicial rebukes. And it's not just the language of the decisions that looms large, it's also the sources. Even several judges appointed by Trump himself have now ruled he and his administration have gone too far, too fast. It's a list that keeps growing. That makes it increasingly difficult for the administration to continue arguing that the adverse rulings are truly about the judiciary's overreach as opposed to its own. A case in point is Wednesday's ruling by the U.S. Court of International Trade striking down many of Trump's most significant tariffs. The ruling could be one of the most significant yet halting a centerpiece of both Trump's economic and foreign policy agendas, though it was later paused by an appeals court while it considers more arguments in the coming weeks. The unanimous three-judge panel of the International Trade Court ruled that Trump exceeded his authority by effectively treating Congress's granting of certain tariff authorities as carte blanche to do whatever he wanted. And some of the language is pretty stark. The case deals with Trump's use of the International Emergency Economic Powers Act of 1977. The act allows the president to levy tariffs, quote, to deal with any unusual and extraordinary threat, unquote, emanating from outside the country, quote, to the national security, foreign policy, or economy of the United States, unquote. Trump has declared national emergencies related to drugs and crime, as well as present trade deficits with other countries. He has sought to use those declarations to justify tariffs on Canada, China, and Mexico, as well as the global tariffs he announced on what the administration deemed as quote-unquote Liberation Day last month. But the three-judge panel said the IEEPA, quote, does not authorize anything as unbounded as the worldwide and retaliatory tariffs, unquote. It said that, quote, such a reading would create an unconstitutional delegation of power, unquote. The panel said tariffs were not a valid method to, quote, deal with, unquote, the threats Trump cited, because creating leverage over other countries doesn't directly address drug trafficking. In a rather dryly worded footnote, the judges noted that the tariffs, quote, do not change the effective rate of duty, unquote, i.e. 0%, quote, for smuggling drugs themselves, unquote. And it rejected the administration's argument that the courts couldn't question Trump's emergency declarations, saying a provision in the law that limits a president's tariff authority, quote, is not a symbolic festoon, unquote. The White House responded to the major setback with familiar talking points. They took aim at the actions of, quote, unelected judges, unquote, asserting they shouldn't be able to question Trump's foreign policy actions. Top White House advisor Stephen Miller added on X, quote, the judicial coup is out of control, unquote. But yet again, the ruling included none other than a judge appointed by Trump. Trump first nominated Timothy Reif to the Federal Trade Court back in 2018. Reif joined in the unanimous opinion, along with judges appointed by former Presidents Barack Obama and Ronald Reagan. There is some nuance here. Trump allies note that Reif was a Democrat who served in the Obama administration. Trump had to nominate a Democrat, given the court is capped at 5 appointees from one party or another. But Reif was also a political appointee in the Trump administration, serving as a senior advisor under the then U.S. Trade Representative Robert Lighthizer. Before his nomination to the Federal Trade Court, indeed his decision to serve in the Trump administration reportedly caught allies off guard, as the Daily Beast reported back in 2017. The Wall Street Journal described Reif as, quote, a Democrat with a reputation as a protectionist, unquote, which would suggest he could be sympathetic to Trump's trade policies and tariffs. One of Trump's top trade advisors, Peter Navarro, is also a protectionist former Democrat. In sum, this is a vote that the administration would certainly prefer not to lose, especially given his vote wasn't even necessary for the court's majority. But this is becoming a familiar tale. Repeatedly and increasingly, Trump-appointed judges have said the administration is grabbing too much power. Earlier this week, a Trump-appointed U.S. District Judge in New York, Louis J. Lehman, blocked the administration's attempts to thwart New York City's congestion pricing program. He said the administration's policy undermines, quote, the authority of a sovereign state to authorize policy decided on by its elected representatives, unquote. Last month, another Trump-appointed U.S. District Judge, Stephanie A. Gallagher, ruled the administration had wrongfully deported a man and had to, quote-unquote, facilitate his return. Another Trevor McFadden ruled the administration had unconstitutionally retaliated against the Associated Press by barring it from the White House events, calling it U.S. officials' actions brazen. Yet another, Fernando Rodriguez Jr., in recent weeks became the first district judge to fully reject the administration's use of the Alien Enemies Act for rapid deportations. Another, Stephanie Haynes, said the administration could use the Alien Enemies Act, but she sharply undercut its utility by saying the administration hadn't provided migrants enough time to challenge their deportations. The judge required they give 21 days. And then there is, of course, the Supreme Court. Each of Trump's 3 appointees to that court, Neil Gorsuch, Brett Kavanaugh, and Amy Coney Barrett, have declined to dissent when the court sought to check Trump's deportation powers. It's actually been the other conservative justices, the ones appointed by Republican presidents before Trump, who have been more amenable to the administration's actions. The Supreme Court sometimes issues rapid orders that don't denote who voted which way, but justices can note when they dissent. It's somewhat fraught to focus too intensely on which presidential nominee a judge wishes a major decision. Federal judges with the insulation of a lifetime appointment are supposed to interpret the law without regard to politics, but it says a lot that people Trump has seen fit to appoint to such important roles have increasingly thwarted some of its boldest moves. That speaks to just how far he pushed the envelope in challenging the limits of his power. All I can say to this is that, look, MAGA, why aren't you out attacking these judges appointed by Trump as being liberal, unhinged, radical activists? Okay, where are you now when it's one of your own that's denying Trump what he wants, okay? You know, it's like, I think I had said this in a previous video before. Trump is basically out there on a limb. That doesn't mean everybody that supports him or follows him or is appointed by him is willing to go that far out on a limb with him. Okay? Think about that. Trump is the extreme. Okay? He's the extreme end of this equation. Everybody else, I don't know. I don't want to go that far. I don't want to go that far. You know? Trump doesn't have a good track record of accomplishing anything. If I step out further onto that branch, we're all going to fall. You know? So I don't think everybody behind him, even the Pam Bondis and all that are out there, I don't think they're willing to go that far, to stick their neck out that far for this guy. Trump, at the end of the day, is on his own. He's on his own. He'll walk that fucking line right out there without fucking batting an eyelash. Fall right off the edge. That's what he does. Okay? But everybody else, you know, they ain't gonna be that ballsy about it. They'll follow him to a point. And we're finding out that the more this shit goes on with Trump, the more we're finding out, you know, there's some Republicans that might at first started out supporting him, but now it's getting very hot. It's getting too uncomfortable. It's starting to show that Trump is really a reckless, you know, unthoughtful person. He doesn't care, you know. People that worked with him, supported him and stuff, either end up falling on their face like Musk or something, or, you know, or whatever. They get swept under the rug. There's no loyalty there with Trump and these people that support him. There isn't any, because at the end of the day, it's all about him. It's not about any of the people that brought him where he's at. And he's going to push the envelope, and he's going to expect everybody else to follow suit, but not everybody else is as demented as he is. Some people actually care about a future and what job they have. Some people actually care that next week I won't have to stand in the unemployment line. Okay? So they're not going to be so eager to push the envelope with him. He's finding out who's really with him on this and who ain't. And the judges he appointed, you know, these people are saying, hey, you're going too goddamn far. There's no way we can justify this legally. There's nothing in the Constitution that would say it's okay what you're doing. Okay, and we would look like idiots trying to defend that. Our credibility as a Supreme Court would be put on a fucking barbecue pit. I mean, as if it isn't already. But, you know, you get what I'm saying. These people have careers. They have jobs. They got a future. They need money. Okay, they have to pay their bills. And if they follow Trump where he's going, a lot of these people are going to get left in the dust, and they know this. So what possible reason could these people have to want to cling to that man's ass as he's going off the deep end? Okay? It's like I said, you know, the things that he does, tariffs and all that, nobody has to follow these fucking executive orders. Nobody has to do it. The business world could say, fuck you, we're not going to put no tariffs on anybody. You can enact them, but we're not going to press the people to pay them. We're going to say, no, you don't have to pay that. You don't have to pay extra. We're not going to charge you or do anything. Don't even think they exist. They don't exist. That's Washington's imaginary, what he's doing, but the rest of the business world doesn't have to fucking follow what he says. They don't have to do it. And Trump don't like it, fuck them. Let them fight the big goddamn companies in this country The little man fighting all the giants. Who do you think's going to win that fight at the end of the day? Christ almighty. I mean, they would, there's so many avenues to attack Trump on. You know, the illegality of using tariffs as a weapon of some sort against other countries for no good reason. There's no fucking way he'd win that. He'd have to rig every damn judge in order to side with him. But even if they did, the judges, how are they going to enforce anything? You see what I'm saying? The laws are there, but Trump, you know, he can just sit in the White House all by himself if that's what he wants, and bark, 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 bark. The rest of us, we can ignore him. Okay? We don't have to follow his lead. Corporate America is good at doing things on their own and avoiding paying taxes and everything. So, in this instance, why don't they just do what they always do best? And just ignore the government and do the fucking work they've been doing all along that got them, you know, so good at Wall Street. Let him blow his top when no one's obeying his tariffs, okay? And let's just keep things going the way they were when Biden was in office, okay? Jesus Christ. You all know Trump is leading you off the deep end. You all know this. He's putting you right into a goddamn hole. So, if you care at all about your companies and you care at all about your wealth, you won't follow that man. He'll say, no. We're not moving an inch on this tariff shit. That tariff, that's yours and yours alone. That's on paper and that's where it's going to stay. We're not enacting tariffs. We've got no reason to. Okay? Immigration. Another thing. Trump says, I want 20 million people deported out of this country. I used to just sit back and laugh. Make us, is what you should say to Trump. Make us. Make us go get these people. We're not budging an inch. Okay? When Trump says, to use the military say, fuck you, Trump. We're not listening to your bullshit. We know you're out of your goddamn half-baked mind, okay? The United States ain't going to war with itself for your sake. That's all you got to do. It's like a mutiny against the president. That's what you got to do. And when Trump sees he ain't going to get his way with the people, he'll just shut up. He'll probably resign. Hey, that'd be a good thing. He'll resign when he realizes he's got no power over anybody because nobody respects him. Why should we? He's a criminal. You know? How many times over? Goddamn rapist. That's what he is. Think of a rapist. Someone who raped you. Would you listen to them giving you orders? Okay? Let's grow a spine here, America. Trump may be president. That doesn't mean we have to listen to him. Okay? Doesn't mean that at all. He wants to enact these rules and all that, fine. Okay? That doesn't mean the rest of us have to follow suit. Okay? We just don't have to. Period. You know, he can threaten, rattle his sword, bitch, blow his top, all he fucking wants. But when he sees that the country is just going to continue to do what it's been doing and still do well, regardless of these fantasy ideas he's got here about making America great again, which he ain't doing, okay? Hey, he's going to realize really quick, you know, America's not buying my shit, you know. Barnum and Bailey Circus, you know. America's doing its own thing. And we can run the country a whole lot better than you can. And so, like I said, Trump, you just got to take the power out of his hand. And the quickest possible way to do that is simply to ignore him. Doesn't matter what he signs. Okay? Forget it. You might as well take that piece of paper and shred it right in front of him. Ain't going to see the light of day. Don't even bother bringing that to Congress or anything. Just take and dump that right in the shredder. All right? And you could stonewall him and say, oh, I gave it. I don't know what the hell happened to it. Okay? You know, just make life miserable for him. He'll get out. He'll fucking get out of the fucking office when he sees he can't turn the country into this fucking nightmare he wants it to be. That's how, you know, everybody has to be behind this idea in order for it to work. That means anybody that's kissing Trump's ass, if you're not part of the equation to stop this shit, you're part of the problem, and you too need to be ignored and marginalized. Okay? That's how I feel about it. Okay, that's it for today. So I hope everybody has a great rest of the week. Tomorrow's Friday, so subscribe, comment, and share. Keep your ears open for health-related issues, and you know, be there for your neighbors, and they'll probably be there for you when you need them. Okay, but it has to begin somewhere. You can't just wait for the other side to approach you. Sometimes you got to make the first move. So I'll talk to you guys later. So take care, everybody. Bye.